Let's start the book of Numbers. Canaan, God getting Moses to count how many people there were. In particular, God wanted to know how many number of males there were who would be able to go to war. God told Moses to take a man from each of the 12 tribes that could assist him in taking a census, counting the people. So now there would be a register of the people. So 603,550 men were eligible from 20 years age to go to war. There was one tribe, the tribe of Levi, that were not listed on the register. They were exempt because they were just there to look after the tabernacle, the ones appointed by God to look after the tabernacle, so they weren't on the register. Now, Moses had taken for himself a wife who was a Cushite woman. That means that she was probably a slave, and she had very dark skin. Both Miriam, that's Moses' sister, and Aaron, Moses' brother, they didn't like the fact that he'd taken a Cushite woman as a wife. It was probable that they could have been racist, and also they were jealous of his leadership. They wanted to know why it was Moses, really, who was the one saying everything to the people when they probably could do just as good a job. It was Miriam that sparked all these arguments, and God was angry with her. So God punished Miriam, taught her a lesson, not to step out of line, in the sense of trusting who God had appointed, and she shouldn't question this. So God gave Miriam leprosy, and he gave her leprosy for 7 days. So that meant she was to stay outside the camp. Leprosy was a skin disease, and people thought at the time, although it isn't, people thought that the person would be unclean and they would catch something off them. So she had to live outside the camp for 7 days. But Moses and Aaron prayed, and after this time, God allowed her to come back into the camp and removed her leprosy. Now, another story in the book of Numbers is the one where God spoke to Moses and told him to send men from Israel as spies into the land of Canaan, the land that God was going to give them. So Moses did this. Moses told them to go and see if the people in the land of Canaan, if they were strong or weak, whether there was a few of them or many, whether the land was good or bad to grow on, if there were trees, and if there was any fruit, to bring some back, fruit of the land. So the people chosen spied out the land from the Zin desert. They could see that the men there in the land of Canaan were huge giants of men. They could see that the people were strong, and their large cities were well protected, well fortified with walls. They did indeed find plentiful fruit and brought some back. It was a land flowing with milk and honey, as God had said. Caleb, one of the men who was sent to spy out the land, said they should go up straight away and occupy it, overcome the people. The other men said, no, no, the people there are stronger than us and are of a great height. The Nephilim, the sons of Anak, they are the giants, the Nephilim. Well, said the people of Israel, we're like grasshoppers to them. The people started rebelling against Moses and Aaron and saying, well, it looks like we're going to die by these giants if we go to Canaan. And they thought amongst themselves about finding another leader and going back to Egypt. Moses did what he always did, listened to God. God was angry. How long were these people not going to believe in him in spite of all he had done for them and shown them? Well, for such a long time, these people had not been trusting in God, not trusting that he would give them the land that he swore to their fathers. God had had enough. It was time for some of these people just to die in the wilderness for their lack of trust and rebellion against him. And so dead bodies began to fall in the wilderness, all who were rebelling against God. God had decided to get rid of this faithless generation, but he didn't kill the little ones. The next generation were going to be the ones that saw the land of Canaan, not this one. Some of the people who God had judged said, we have sinned, we'll go to the promised land of Canaan. We'll go and get it. But Moses told them it's too late, God won't hear you. And you will die by the sword. You'll die by the sword of the Amalekites and Canaanites. They didn't listen and went out. And they did die by the sword. And they ran out of Canaan. Now, another story in the book of Numbers is a story about Korah. He was a Levite, and he was jealous of Moses and Aaron. And he argued with him and said, anybody is holy in front of God. God is amongst all of us. The truth was, Korah was jealous of Moses and wanted to be the priest. So Moses said to him, in the morning, God's going to show you who is his and who is holy, who he has chosen. God told Moses and Aaron to separate themselves from the gathered 250 men who were against them, and so they were against God. God told Moses to gather the people together and separate them away from the wicked men, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. These were the ones who were going up against Moses and therefore against God. So they were separated, and these three, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, were separated with their children. And Moses said to them, watch now and see if it is that the Lord sent me to do all the works and it wasn't my choice. If you were to die naturally, then it is that I should not be here. But if the Lord does something, opens up the grounds and swallows you up, then you will know that it is my choice to be with God. And also, the Lord is showing that you despised the Lord. And it came to pass that when Moses had finished speaking, the ground opened up, and Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and all his household were swallowed up and the earth closed over them, and they perished. And the other 250 men, the 250 that had followed these three, were consumed with fire. Even after this, the people were still arguing and grumbling against God. Again, God had had enough of the grumbling and sent a plague amongst some of the people, and 14,700 died. But yet again, Aaron and Moses pleaded to God to stop, fell on their knees and pleaded that God would stop the plague. So some of the people were saved. God probably wondered how many times he must say to the people that he had chosen certain people, his holy ones, to get them to the land of Canaan. How many times would they ignore the signs? Again, God said to Moses, get all the elders, the tribes, and get them to bring their staffs, their sticks. And I'm going to show you that the one whose staff from all the tribes blossoms, they will then see through the flowers on that staff that head of that tribe is the chosen one. And the people must then cease to grumble. It was Aaron's staff that sprouted. So for a while, there was no more challenges to the priesthood. Now, whilst they were in the wilderness, Moses' sister Miriam died, and she was buried in a place called Kadesh. Now, as the people were out in the wilderness, sometimes, as we've seen, they were without food or water. At one point, the people complained and argued with Moses that there was no water for them to drink. Now God said to Moses and Aaron, tell the rock to yield water. But Moses and Aaron did not. Moses instead struck the rock and water came out. Now, as Moses and Aaron journeyed from Kadesh, they came to Mount Hor. They came to Mount Hor with a lot fewer people because of all the disobedience. At Mount Hor, though, Aaron died, and that was his punishment for not following commands with the water at the rock. They were told to speak to the rock to yield water, but it was hit with a stick instead. So Aaron never entered the promised land, Canaan, and his priestly garments were passed to his son, Eleazar, up on the mountain. This had all been told to Moses, that this would happen at the top of the Mount Hor. Now, as the Israeli people moved more towards the promised land, some of the kings came out and fought the Israeli people. Israel prayed to God and defeated King Arad, the Canaanite, who came to attack them. The people of Israel started complaining to Moses on their journey from Mount Hor, speaking against Moses and therefore speaking actually against God. So what did God do? He sent fiery serpents among the people so that they bit the people, and many of the people died. The remaining people who hadn't died by the snake bites came to Moses saying, we have sinned. We have spoken against the Lord and you. Pray to the Lord that he takes these serpents away from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, "Make a fiery serpent and set it up high on a pole, and everyone who is bitten when he sees it shall live." And so Moses did as God said. There were one or two more battles as the Israelites got nearer the promised land, and they were defeated. They defeated a king, the king of Bashan, King Og. He came out to battle. He was defeated, and the people of Israel were getting nearer and nearer to the promised land.